Update. Sister-in-law expressed I don't deserve our new house. Now husband's family is melting down. Original post. My husband, 38 male and I, 33 female, just bought our first house. My husband has a pretty high-paying job. I work and make a decent salary, but our budget to buy our house was definitely influenced more by his earnings. We had his family over last week. Generally, I love his parents. They've always been really good to me, and they're fun. I have not spent as much time with his sister outside of holiday gatherings, but we do have her son, husband's nephew, stay with us for a week over the summer the last few years. So I know him well too, and love him. So everyone mentioned above comes over and we show them around the house. At one point, I'm showing sister-in-law a kitchenette in the basement, and I say something like, "It's great that our house has this space now, so if you want to visit us, you'll have basically a separate apartment." And she goes, "Our? Is it also your house?" I'm immediately confused, but also I guess she could have assumed my husband bought it on his own. I said, "Yeah, we bought it together." And she goes, "Do you think you deserve to own half of this house?" I don't know. I just think that's crazy. I was shocked, and I mostly panicked, said, "Well, I do, yeah," and fled the basement. I immediately told my husband, away from his family, and he in turn immediately went to talk to his sister. I went to hang out with his parents and didn't say anything to them, but then we heard shouting outside. My husband and his sister were yelling at each other. I know people are different with their siblings, but I've never really heard him yell before. I could hear him tell her that we don't have a prenup, and she called him an idiot. I had to tell his parents what was going on. They went and intervened and left pretty quickly with his sister and nephew, who didn't hear any of this through the magic of video games, I think. His mom said sorry to me on the way out. I did touch base with my husband and he was livid, like way angrier than I'd expect. He told me that before we got married, his sister was the beneficiary of his life insurance, and he thought she was angry over essentially being removed from all his assets. But we've been married 3 years. She apparently had texted him about being added to the house paperwork a few weeks ago during the buying process, and he had just ignored her. His parents have reached out to me and have been very sweet and apologetic, but they really want to fix things and have asked if I'll talk to sister-in-law. I'm trying to step away from it and just say it's now between my husband and his sister. Is that fair? Of course, I'm a bit hurt by her saying that, but at the end of the day, if she has problems with how he's handling his assets, that's between the two of them, right? I feel really bad because his family has always been so sweet, and I really love his nephew, so I also want things to be fixed. Now for the top comments before reading the update. What could you possibly say to your sister-in-law? I think you say that the issue isn't really about you, it's about how sister-in-law thinks everything that is your husband's is part hers. That's something your husband needs to set straight, not you. You just sit there and stay pleasant. You handled this perfectly. It's not your battle and your husband has your back clearly. Sister-in-law sounds insane. I know this is right, but it's just really frustrating. We've had the awkward conversation of explaining why we don't have a prenup to some friends and family, and I really don't mind getting into those topics or talking about those things. I know this is different because she's not coming from a place of curiosity or just wanting to understand, but it's wild to me that it jumped this quickly suddenly when we bought a house. You shouldn't have to explain to anyone whether or not you have a prenup. And just why does his sister think she's more entitled to your husband's and your assets? Where's her husband or significant other? She's been really unlucky in relationships, been with some real crappy dudes, and the kid's dad is totally off the map and has been for years, which is partially why my husband has his college fund and pays for a bunch of his extra stuff, like camps and sports. When he comes to stay with us, it's for a private baseball camp thing. Mini update. Wow, this blew up a bit. I will make an update. We have plans to chat about it today and speak with his parents and figure out how we want to go forward. I agree with essentially all of you, and I'm not planning to discuss it with her until she apologizes. And to answer some common questions, nephew's dad is not and has not been in the picture for a long time. Sister-in-law has been in and out of relationships with not the best types of dudes. She is younger and there are no other siblings. Yes, there's been a pattern of her getting more help from their parents, but it's because she really needs it with being a single mom, and my husband has always been pretty independent. I promise I don't tell every person on the street about our lack of a prenup. My husband did come into the marriage with a lot of assets, so I think when his friends and family expressed curiosity about a prenup, it was coming from a place of concern or care for him, and I love that, so it felt appropriate to share how we made that decision. No one ever pushed back. I've never talked to his sister about it, and I think she didn't know, but my husband sort of yelled it at her in anger in a "we don't even have a prenup" way. We are planning on kids, but could still keep up what we currently do for our nephew even if we did. He just became an official teenager, so the college fund is close to complete. At this stage, we don't add much money to it anymore. It's just accruing. Now for the update. I was not expecting that much feedback, but I'm super grateful. It was really affirming and validating to read a lot of those comments, and a bit humbling too. This recent move took us a little bit out of town, so I'm still close to my social circle, but didn't immediately have someone to vent to, and you all were really helpful in that way. To update, she was secretly planning his murder to get the life insurance money. No, not really. After talking a bunch with both my husband and his parents, we figured out a few things. He didn't tell her that he'd replaced her as the beneficiary on everything, because he assumed she would know that. So she had texted him during the home purchase, "Hey, do you need my signature on anything for this new house?" He had messaged her back, "No." She then essentially asked if the house was an asset set up, like his life insurance. And he told her that everything is set up fine and that I'm on all the paperwork. And she responded, "Okay." So I do think part of this is her truly not knowing how marriage is supposed to work. And she seems to have expected there wouldn't be any change. I found out she also mentioned this with their parents, her main concern being that if something happened to my husband, I wouldn't help her son like we've been doing as a couple. Mother-in-law and father-in-law say they told her not to worry and that I love our nephew, but that was what was going on behind the scenes before all this. Mother-in-law and father-in-law also admitted that they may have unintentionally encouraged this because they've always really encouraged their kids to support each other. But due to the various dynamics at play, what that ends up being is pressure on my husband and a sort of "your brother will always be there for you" message to his sister. This was particularly strong in the last few years before I met and married him, because his parents thought he was planning to be a lifelong bachelor. They're not wrong. He definitely had that mindset at a time. And so then he and his sister really were, in their eyes, each other's lifelong person. So the last few years, there had been this level of fallout I wasn't even aware of due to that. I also learned sister-in-law is in a not great financial situation, and due to past issues, the whole family essentially refuses to give her cash, but will do things like buy groceries or pay a phone bill. So she's been struggling, and I think feeling a little desperate and jealous. Of course, none of this is an excuse, and I'm not speaking to her until I get an apology. My husband has also said he needs at least a week or two before he speaks to her, but he does plan to. His parents are totally in agreement and understand. They are going to tell her that we talked about the dynamics at play and that she needs to acknowledge what is going on here and take accountability for her part in it. So hopefully that will kickstart things in the right direction. Being too understanding and too flexible has been a difficulty for me for a long time. Having feedback about how truly messed up that situation was really helpful for me, so thank you. For me, there's a fine line between being unbothered and being a doormat, and I'm definitely working on differentiating those two. Glad that it has been talked about. You fully deserve that apology from her. Her being broke isn't on you, and the family need to stop enabling her by helping. It's also wild that her whole plan was to just leech off her brother and foist her kids' expenses on other people. Like, get your act together, lady. You decided to have a kid. You're way too old to be this much of an insufferable loser. Yeah, I find the whole parents' line of thought of they'll be each other's lifelong person grotesque. What kind of emotional incest are the parents trying to set up between their son and daughter? Even if OP's husband had ended up a bachelor, his sister should not feel entitled to him or his resources. Raising her to be independent would have been the better move. You? Your husband is gonna need some therapy to unpack all this weird enmeshment. The whole you two are going to be lifelong partners as siblings from the parents. Emotional incest indeed. Double ew. Single mom here would never expect or ask this of my brother, single or otherwise. Just wow. I understand where his parents were coming from to a degree. It basically started out as, you're the older brother, look out for her. But then he progressed and became really successful and financially successful, and she struggled in various ways, and so it really snowballed. I am glad they realized that the enmeshment is an issue. Next story. Am I the a-hole for disowning my mother after she refused to hold my toxic sister accountable? I, 28 female, have a terrible relationship with my sister, 31 female. It wasn't always this bad when we were kids, but over the years, the resentment and hurt have built up, and now we can barely tolerate each other. One of the biggest issues is how my mother, the peacekeeper, refuses to ever hold her accountable. I get that she loves both of us and wants peace in the family, but what it's really done is enable my sister's toxic behavior, while I'm left to suffer for the sake of keeping the peace. Here's just one example. When my parents were overseas, my sister wanted to go on a holiday but didn't have the money. My mother asked me to loan it to her, so I did. Later, when I asked for repayment, my sister told me to collect it from my mom because she'd be sponsoring her trip. My mom told me she never said that. It was supposed to be my sister's responsibility. But my sister insisted, and in the end, that I just paid for it myself because I couldn't bear to take money from my stay-at-home mother. And that's how it always goes. I'm left to foot the bill, literally and emotionally. And it gets worse. After I broke up with my ex, who I introduced to my sister, she got together with him almost immediately. I had to sit in my own home, freshly heartbroken, watching as my ex picked her up for dates. I found out later they were in contact, even when we were dating. My parents told me not to make a scene because blood is thicker than water, and she's your sister, you should forgive her. They even welcomed my ex to family gatherings, saying, we'll do the same for you if you fall in love with someone. There are so many examples I could share. Family plans are always rescheduled to accommodate her because I am the accommodating one. My parents have offered to pick me up only to cancel last minute because there's no space in the car after picking up your sister and her boyfriend. I've had to help my parents financially because my sister won't lift a finger and I can't bear to see them struggle. All this because I'm the mature one, as they love to remind me. My mother's fallback in every fight is both of you are wrong, even when it's so clearly one-sided. I know my mom loves me, but as an adult, I've come to realize how much this is failed parenting. I finally told my mom I've had enough. I will no longer tolerate this dynamic. Parents of Reddit, how would you handle this if your children were at odds? Do you believe in always staying neutral? Or would you step in when one child is clearly in the wrong? I love my family, but I'm tired of keeping the peace at the expense of my sanity. Am I the a-hole for taking it this far? Now for the top comments. Just tell your mother how you feel. Write down everything your sister has done to you and every time your mother had enabled her. Then just tell her that it stops now. If you finally can't put me first, that's it. I'm done with all of you. Your sister is 31, not 13. It's disgusting what your mother has turned her into. This is all on your mother and her enabling ways. Not the a-hole, but you would be if you don't confront your mother and truly tell her how you feel and what your dreadful sister has done to you. Oh, believe me, I have tried. I have told her multiple times, citing examples after examples for years. She would simply brush it off, telling me it's a small issue and that she's family, but never addressing the core problem or holding her accountable. Nah, dude, not the a-hole at all. Your mom's peacekeeping is just code for enabling BS and letting your sister treat you like a doormat. That ain't neutrality. That's cowardice in a mom costume. You set a boundary, and honestly, good for you. Blood ain't thicker than self-respect. Keep that energy. Facts. It's not peacekeeping if one person is always bleeding for it. Sometimes walking away is the healthiest move. The sister is the golden child. OP just hasn't figured it out yet. Last story. Am I the a-hole for changing my last name to match with my kids, even though my ex hates it? I, 27 male, was having casual hookups with Nia, 26 female, for 2 years when she got pregnant. I told her I'd stand by her and the baby, but she told me to care more about the kids than her because we were not a couple and never would be. About 6 months into her pregnancy, she told me she was putting her new boyfriend on the birth certificate and didn't want me involved. I told her I wasn't about to let her cut me out of our baby's life. She warned me I'd need to fight because she wanted to make things easier, and her boyfriend being the dad was easier. 8 months into her pregnancy, I found out she was expecting twins and not a singleton. The reason she never told me is, the less I knew, the more she could make it look like I didn't care when paternity and custody became a fight. When the twins were born, I petitioned the court for a DNA test and to establish custody if they were proven to be mine. I had some doubt around then because of how hard she shut me out. DNA showed I was the father of our twins, and a custody schedule was set up where I could be involved and pay child support. After paternity was settled and my name was put on the birth certificates, I really hated that I didn't have the same last name as them. So, I changed mine to match. She heard about it through some people we both know, and she told me it was gross, and she hated the idea. I told her it wasn't her decision, and I wasn't doing it for her, but for me and to match with my children. This is my first Father's Day as a dad, and I get to have the same last name as my kids, and it feels great. They're almost 1, and this last year and a half has been crazy, and it's still not over. But I don't regret the decision to match with my kids. I know my ex and her boyfriend both think I was wrong. My ex's boyfriend taunted me a few times that he might share a name with my kids one day when I won't. They think I did it because of that, but my mind was on it even before he said it the first time. Was this an a-hole move when it was about my kids and not my ex? I know it was her name first, but I don't know. Am I the a-hole? You are a real man. Fight for your kids. Love them. Teach them. Guide them. Not the a-hole in the slightest. However, I can give you this tidbit of advice. As your kids grow up, if their mother and her man decide to badmouth you to your kids, and there is a chance they will, do not do the same. Be neutral at worst. Show them how a real man behaves, with strength to persevere through adversity, with pride enough to never allow another person's words to affect his actions, and with love and affection towards his children and those they care about, regardless of how they feel about him. Sharing because I went through this. Have it put in your custody agreement that neither party can talk bad about the other. Since it was in writing, my ex had to watch what he said. Also, and this is very important, insist that all scheduling, doctor's appointments, vacations, school trips, etc. be conducted via email only. I can't tell you how often my ex tried to lie, only to be caught by the lack of email. Not the a-hole. They are your kids and you did it for them. Honestly, what I think is gross is the fact that your ex literally tried to keep your kids away LMFAO. I think you should throw that in her face every time she uses the word gross with you. In a world where we already have deadbeat dads and coward fathers, we need more men like you. So maybe your ex should stay in her lane and not worry about a name. Happy Father's Day, OP.